wanna shoot me down, 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 down. Now I'm bulletproof because of you.
Well, hey, good morning, guys. You guys ready for spring break soon? Yeah? We get a little head start tomorrow. I'm excited for a little break. Well, I want to introduce you to our chapel speaker, give you a little bit of a background of her life, why she's here, and a little bit of her story. Obviously, she's going to share more details with you, but we have a really great privilege this morning to welcome a chapel speaker who, if you frequent the library at all, a couple of her books are actually in our library. She's written about her story and what God has done in her life and how he has worked through her. But a little bit background. In 2008, she suffered a life-altering stroke, which led into a series of operations and surgeries, many long nights and days in the hospital and ICU. God brought her through that, but obviously life looked different. And so out of that time and out of that story, the Lord really just used her life to encourage and challenge others, and her husband and her have co-authored books together to talk about it. They started in 2017 a ministry called Hope Heals, which in a moment you're going to see a little bit of some snapshots of that ministry and what they do. But Hope Heals is a ministry that partners with families with disabilities and creates community and an environment where they can connect with other families and just have fun. And so that ministry started just a few years ago, and it's really just a great chance for families to connect with others, find community, and find hope. And so in a moment, we're going to turn to the screens, and it's going to show you the camp itself and kind of their mission and their goal. And then after that video, you guys are going to help me welcome up our chapel speaker. So for now, let's look at the screens to see what Hope Heals is all about.
I may not be able to do everything you can do. I may not see what you can see. I may not stand like you can stand. I may not speak, but I can sing. I may not be able to go where you can go. My life has a different door. I may not run the race you run. I may not run, but I can soar. I may not be able to grasp what you can grasp, to know what you can know. But there are 200 billion trillion stars in the universe, each with a brilliance of its own. Yes, there are times when I wish things were different. It was not my decision to be disabled. There are days I wished it was easier, nights I prayed for another label. But I am not what I cannot do. I am more than a conqueror too. I will not strive to reveal that I matter. The value of a soul is not something to prove. I am here. I am treasured. I am welcomed to the table. To love and be loved. I am able.
Hey, students, would you help me give a warm TK welcome to Miss Katherine Wolf?
Hi, hey. Hey, guys. So glad. Oh, my gosh. Just making you start listening this morning. Wow, sorry. The wheelchair doesn't always do what I want it to do, but in case you were asleep, now you're not. And good morning. I'm so glad to be here with you guys. I imagine you're ready for spring break and may not want to engage what looks like it could be a really sad, really hard story right about now. Well, you would be wrong if you think that, and I'm about to tell you why. This is not actually going to be a sad story. It's going to be a really cool story. I think you're going to like it, actually. Yes, I am a wheelchair user, but I can actually stand up a little. And I like to stand up from the top. Oh, thanks, guys. Thank you. To get your attention, honestly. Because I don't want you to miss this. This is very special. I think stories, sharing our stories, gaining perspective of other people's stories who are walking with Christ through their life is super important. And I want to encourage you that maybe you don't have a wheelchair in your story. Doesn't look like there's many here today that do. Maybe there are some physical disabilities of other kinds happening. But probably, actually not probably, for sure, you actually do have disabilities. It just may not be on the outside. You do have disabilities happening on the inside, though, because we all do. We've all got stuff. I like to say that I've got a wheelchair on the outside of my body, but everybody has wheelchairs on the inside. I call them invisible wheelchairs. Everybody has stuff in their stories that's not okay, that's hard. And maybe nobody knows what you're walking through. You may have a learning difference of some kind. You may have tremendous problems at home that nobody knows about. Or you could have all manner of mental illness, eating disorders, panic attacks, anxiety, depression. The gamut is massive for what you could be walking through, and nobody knows. And you see, that's actually not different. I have a different brand of brokenness, but it is the same story of suffering, ultimately. And I believe the same story of God showing up in our weakness, in our need, in our dependence on Him. I'm going to sit down and share my story with you, in short. And thank you in advance for letting me share my story, because I believe there's so much power in this, that when we share our story, whatever we're walking through, with somebody else, it is changing how we feel about our story. Neurobiology teaches that when we share our story with an empathetic listener, which you guys seem like empathetic listeners, that when we do that, listeners who showcase empathy, that when we do that, what we are doing is changing our neurobiology. We are creating new neuro pathways in our brain. We are sending a message to go a different way to our brain. So it's very, very hard to live a victim mentality when we're doing this. When we're constantly narrating and sharing our story, and honestly, the hope in our story. The fact that we're here, we're in the story. The fact that, I get to show up and tell you the story of what happened to me. Big or small, it's powerful. So, thank y'all in advance for letting me do that. In short, I married my college sweetheart, went to Stanford University, a Christian college that actually some of your families are connected to. It's really cool. Some of your mothers I spoke to earlier are alumni of the school even. So I went to Stanford in Birmingham, which is kind of a bigger PBA maybe, and moved to California, was loving life, had a young adventure with my husband, had a little baby along the way, James Thompson, born in October of 2007. And when James was 6 months and 5 days old, out of absolutely nowhere, with no warning, no indication anything was wrong, no family history, no medical history, nothing that would indicate anything was off, I nearly died of a massive brainstem stroke. I collapsed in the married housing dorm we were living in. I started throwing up. My husband miraculously came home in like a 45-minute window between his final law school classes and called 911. They came. The paramedics very quickly determined something was very wrong with me. Didn't know what it was. They took me out on a stretcher of my married housing dorm. And I can remember thinking these super funny, in retrospect, thoughts. I remember thinking, we should grab a toothbrush in case I have to spend the night there. And I hope when they wake up James from his nap, they give him the right food we're trialing, the puree. And I would have no way of knowing that when I would leave that dorm and go unconscious, I would only wake up 2.5 months later. So 2.5 months of being unconscious. I've subsequently learned that I went into a radical 16-hour brain surgery. And the effects of that surgery are actually why I'm in the situation I am today. The surgeon decided to make sacrifices in order to keep me alive. So the surgeon knew, like, I'll have to cut her facial nerve, so she'll never move her face on one side again. But that's to get the AVM out. And I'll have to cut the nerve that controls her hearing, so she'll never hear out of this ear again, but she'll be alive. You follow? I'll have to remove part of her cerebellum in her brain, but when I do that, that allows me to remove the AVM more fully. So over and over, as he went, he had to make sacrifices in order for me to live, which is a very powerful and important point in all of our stories, that there may be wounding, for sure, but it's so that there can be healing. It's the beautiful truth in Jeremiah that he wounds and he heals. Wounding can happen. Sacrifices can be made, but it is so there can be thriving many times on the other side of where we've been. And that's true for me. After suffering the AVM, would take months to relearn to eat, to speak, to walk. I was on a feeding tube, a tube where they fed me through my stomach. So I tasted no food for 11 months. So imagine a few weeks of not eating, a few months. Try 11. It makes you nuts. I did not think I was going to live through that. I told God I would rather never walk again than never eat. Eating was such a part of life that it felt like an outsider to not be able to eat with my family and friends. And life is not just about food consumption, is it? Food is eating, food is family, food is gathering together with people. So when you can't do that, you feel like you're on the outside of this world. And it was really hard, really, really horrible. The very worst part of my whole ordeal was that I had a sweet baby growing up without his mother there. We have a picture of my first Mother's Day. And that picture is so hard because I have no memory of that day You can imagine the pain of you wake up and your baby's older and chubbier, and does he still recognize me? Am I still like mama? And of course I was, but I couldn't take care of him. Mothering is, of course, with the heart, not the hands. But the hands are very useful. And you want to take care of your baby. It's very visceral. And I couldn't. And it was a deep sadness. 1 second, sorry. I don't swallow well, and I don't speak well, so forgive me. And this is my third speaking this morning, so it's real bad. I apologize. But that, sorry, but that was a dramatic pause to tell you this. So from that hospital room, with that baby, in that hospital bed, I have a second picture of a hospital room and a baby in the hospital bed. And that's because I was able to have a second baby, biologically, John. 8 years after my first son was born, 7.5 years after the stroke, I was able to have baby John Nestor. And John Nestor is named John because John means the Lord has been gracious, and he has, so gracious. His middle name, Nestor, is my neurosurgeon's name. The neurosurgeon who saved my life's name is Nestor Gonzalez. And Dr. Nestor gives second chances to patients, just like his mama. We did not know this at the time, but Nestor in Hebrew means seeker of miracles. So he literally named our baby John, the Lord's been gracious, Nestor, seeker of miracles, Wolf. And we feel like that's a really good name for the kid. And you can't make this stuff up. Like, we named our child Seeker of Miracles on accident because it was from my neurosurgeon that saved my life. Crazy, right? We have a picture of my 40th birthday, which was 2 years ago. I'm 42. And as you can see, we are a family of 4 carrying on. It's not perfect. You could look at that picture and just see sadness. She can't even stand up on her birthday. Or you could see that is a glory story of God showing up in the midst of a broken life and making something beautiful and doing something new. You know, that picture to me has become kind of an anthem of life may not look like what we thought, but it can be an incredibly beautiful life, a life that actually is even better than if it wasn't the hardship, because the hardship makes everything more special. You treasure it differently. You recognize what's really important. There is a beautiful clarity in suffering. Do you know what I mean? Those are kind of big words, but you're smart kids. There is a clarifying factor. You see what to do, where to go, how to live, because things have been real bad, so you know. And that's amazing. You don't get that perspective much in the Western world. You may know that. Because we have it so good so many times, things are cloudy. You can't see. I was that kid. Things are great. Things are wonderful. I'm happy. I'm healthy. Like, I live in America, and everything's awesome. And everything is awesome. America is amazing. And yet, we can become sort of immune to the reality. We can be out of touch. We can think suffering is for somebody in a developing nation that deals with that. But like, life is perfect here. And the reality is, no, it's not. There's very hard things. And they are actually probably, if they haven't already, which they may have, going to hit your story at some point in your life. I say that so tenderly because there's so much pain in what we go through in life. But the reality is, we are on earth. Things are hard here. Life is hard. John 16:33 says that there will be trials in this world. But take heart, be of good cheer. He has overcome this world. There's hope in all of our hard stuff. You know, it's so interesting. I think so many times, like at least for me, when I was 14, 15, 16, I didn't know life was going to be this hard. I think I lived under the illusion that everything was probably going to work out for me. I don't know, maybe some of you feel that way. Like, probably things are going to be good because of all the reasons that things should be good, which by and large, right here, right now, I say that tenderly, but mostly we're coming up roses, if we're honest. If you're in touch with like where you are in the world, it's not incredibly difficult to get out of bed in the morning most of the time. However, I nearly died of a massive stroke. I've become severely disabled. I have loads of tremendous, horrible health problems to this day. And that's only touching the surface of the issues. I have all these medical problems, but then I have loads of unrelated life problems, which is true in all of our stories. We have the thing, right? The suffering, but then there's all kinds of other sufferings. There's hard stuff. I have a hard situation in my family right now. I have a hard situation in a lot of categories of life. Nothing is one note. Suffering does not just look like one little thing. And yet, life goes on. We go through life and we get to decide how we feel about it, how we live with it, how we move forward from the rubble, from the remains of what's happened. I find deep, deep comfort in gratitude. If you know what that is, being thankful seems so basic. You've heard it a million times. But the reality is, when we can turn that on and recognize that we can celebrate and cultivate deep gratitude for what remains in our stories, we can live them differently. We can make up to, yeah, there's a wheelchair in this story, but there's also all those people on the screen in this story. There's like an amazing life that God has called me to, even in this wheelchair, in this story. This actually is a seat of honor if I have eyes to see it that way. God chose me for this life. I get to live it really well. It says in Ephesians 4:1 that we get to live lives worthy of the callings that we've received. That's pretty powerful, game-changing, mind-bending stuff. And I encourage you, lean into that. We live into the upside-down kingdom of God if you know Jesus. We get to live differently, even in the stories that look hard to the world. Like, who gets to decide how I feel about this story? My parents? My friends? My children? No. Guess who gets to decide how they feel about this story? Right here, me and only me. So I choose to see my life with the lens of Christ, that to die is gain, that all of this matters so much to him, and I live for an audience of one. That is so important. I wish I'd known that when I was not exactly the age I am now, maybe around your age. So my husband and I have carried on in our lives, and we now have 2 kids that you saw on the screen, and life hasn't been perfect. There's been a lot of problems through the years, but I'm 16 years out from the stroke, and as my husband and I have written several books, Hope Heals and Suffer Strong, that are in your library right now if you're interested, although a sweet guy after the last chapel said, no, I want a copy at home. So it is available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. But if you want to buy it, it's in your library. But I actually have a new book coming out that I do want you to buy. It's called Treasures in the Dark. Leah, raise your hand. She has postcards if you're interested. Come get one and get a devotional Treasures in the Dark to encourage your heart on the hard days. Anyway, we start speaking, we start writing. We have this ministry just percolating of people with disabilities, yes, on the outside, but also people with broken hearts, broken bodies, broken hearts, broken brains. We've got hurting people across the board. So what can we do? Well, we believe the Lord enabled us to figure it out, to have a camp for families with disabilities, where someone has a disability in the family unit and everybody comes to camp entirely for free for a week in the summertime. It's a very special place, and I want to encourage you all, come volunteer to work at it, or if you're someone living with disabilities, apply to come for free with your whole family. But come to camp. It is life-changing to serve in a camp. It's like the best mission trip you've ever been on in your whole life. You don't have to go to Africa. It's so important to go to Africa. But you can go to Alabama and be on a mission. You can come serve people with disabilities. It's fairly life-changing. Come on over, hopehillscamp.org. Side note, ask Leah for details if that's cool. Anyway, our camp is just the coolest thing ever. What we are doing at camp is fighting hard the lie, the idol, that joy can only come in a pain-free life. Because we know that isn't true. We know there can be pain in our stories, but there can also be joy in our stories at the same time. There can be good and hard. Those are not mutually exclusive. There can be joy and sorrow, and it's all part of the same story. Speaking of that, my friend Katie, who's in the wheelchair, next to the spicy blonde, yours truly, dancing at our dance party. And Katie fell off a golf cart as a 17-year-old and hit just at the right millimeter to create a tremendous traumatic brain injury in her brain. And she's in a wheelchair, has cognitive issues, and lives with her parents, and she's 29. And that population has my heart. I can barely talk about it without crying. The population of young adults who have nowhere to go, no meaningful employment or way to earn a fair wage, and whose only peer group are aging parents or paid caregivers is a tragedy in our world. I believe it is a part of the breaking, a tear in the human fabric. So what my husband and I have done, with the help of our team at Hope Heals, is create a place called Mend, M-E-N-D, Mend, because we believe we are mending the broken world. That tear of fabric, we get to mend it. We get to be a part of mending the broken world. Mend is a coffee shop and retail concept in Atlanta that opens next month. Y'all come visit. It's going to be really cool. And we get to be a part of celebrating all the people with disabilities. And as you see by this last picture, there's a lot of joy in the disability community. Everybody thinks everything must be so sad. No, it's not sad. There's joy. There's deep joy when you start at the baseline that everything is not okay, decidedly. Because like at camp, with wheelchairs everywhere and all kinds of pain and problems and amputees walking around and this and that, it's no denying. Like, life is not perfect. And yet, because of that, you get to the joy a lot quicker. Because we all know it's not going to be like we thought it was going to be when we were little kids. And yet, why can't it be amazing? Why can't we love this life right here and right now? It's powerful. So come serve at camp and you can get a taste of that. Or I guess I should tell you, just implement it in your own life as well. Start living that way. My husband and I are big fans of choosing to love a life we could have never imagined living. And that is my prayer for all of you. I love, love, love the thought of Isaiah 45:3. That is a beautiful passage where God says, I will give you hidden treasure in the darkness, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am God, the God of Israel, the God who summons you by name. And I see so clearly that if you are forced into the darkness in your life, which for sure we will all be, at some point in our life, if we live long enough, forced into the darkness, you might as well get the treasure out of the darkness. You're there, you might as well learn the right lessons, right? Might as well, because you're in it. So why not take that treasure and cherish it every day of your life? Let it inform how you live. You might as well not miss it. It says in Romans 5 that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope will not put us to shame. We will not be put to shame. We will not be without tremendous hope, even when there is suffering in the story. I would love to pray, if you guys would let me pray with you. Father, what a gift to be in this moment with these people. I know every single person here is here for a reason, Lord. Don't waste this moment, people. I'm talking to you and to God. Lord, I pray that every person in this room will make a memory of this morning in their brain and let it be a tutor, a teacher for the story that you are writing through each and every one of their lives, Lord. I pray Hebrews 12, that they may run with perseverance the race marked out before them, fixing their eyes on you, Jesus, the author and perfecter of their faith, Lord. I thank you for how you are at work and on the move in every single one of our stories. We know nothing is wasted, Father. You use everything in each one of our lives to somehow bring you glory, Lord. Let us spend our lives honoring you with how we live, Jesus. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Hey, students, can we thank Ms. Katherine for sharing with us this morning? Thank you for being with us. And I think not only your story is encouraging to me, but also just the commitment of you and your husband. So you guys are celebrating, was it 21 years of marriage?
Oh, well, we'll be 20 in November, but
20
close
in
enough.
November.
Yeah.
All right, close enough. And I love that, like, you guys are a testament of that commitment of in sickness and in health and
That's
sticking
right.
by each other's side.
You know,
And-
Josh, they told us when I was in the hospital as a 26-year-old, the social worker, who we don't know why he said this, told my husband 90% of couples who have this level of tragedy before the age of 30 will get divorced. 90%. Which we don't know why she told him that, but I've been real tempted to send her Christmas cards.
Well, you guys are an encouragement to us and just for you students. I mean, as you think ahead to your life, obviously, as she said, you know, life is hard and things come up. But just that, I don't know, that's that encouragement as well of be the person that sticks by your commitments. And as you guys are getting older and thinking about that other person, like, find that person too that takes those vows seriously and that commitment level. And so we're just really encouraged by your story. And also I hope that it equips you, not just encourages you, but equips you for the life ahead. And so you can do that by remembering this message, but also by the books. And if you're interested in Hope Heals and being a part of what she's doing, we'd love for you guys to be a part of that as well. So we're going to end in our benediction. This benediction is a word of blessing as you go out into spring break, but also it's a declaration of God's goodness, even despite our circumstances. So you guys are going to say the bolded portions, and I'll lead us in the plain fauna. Jesus is for me. At the cross, he and rose again. Thanks be to God. Amen.